Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my friends, wherever in this world you may be, or whichever dimension you may be coming to us from. And if you're in the 28th dimension, I hear they have some fantastic barbecue. Save your boy a slab, will you? Let's make this rain. It was a terrible intro. Okay, I'm so happy to be here today on yet. I wanted to get her to spit that out, and I think we might have just done. But welcome to another episode of 40 Going on 4, the show that helps you reconnect with your inner child who may be hiding under the bed from the monsters of LinkedIn influencers. Today, I have the most extraordinary guest, the brilliant, the incredible, the certified brain coach, Jocelyn Brady. Jocelyn, welcome, my friend.
Hey, thank you. I'm clapping for myself here.
I'm clapping for you too. Let's just get a round of applause from everybody in the comments, and let's just do this. Let's just get it going right now. So I had an opportunity. I think we connected a few years ago, didn't we? Like right in the thick of the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I think I spotted your writing, or maybe vice versa. I was just like, this person gets it. I want to be connected.
That's exactly what happened too. I was scrolling LinkedIn. I saw this incredible post and I said, this person gets it. And I connected with myself. And it was awesome. Then after that, I saw you.
We do need to do that. We do need to connect with ourselves. Probably more of us. Do. More now.
And that's why we're here today. That's why we're doing this show. It's about connecting with ourselves and not these characters that we've created for ourselves, but ourselves. And there's no better way to take the 40-year-old you and go right back to the 4-year-old you than through this thing right up here. If you're not familiar with it, if none of you have done the anatomy class before, it is called the brain, and most of us have it unless you went to the University of Michigan. Go green. And as you can tell, my esteemed guest today knows a thing or two about this. So Jocelyn, we're gonna jump right in like we always do here, and I'm gonna start with a question that I think is central to what we're going to talk about today, and we'll take it in 1,000 different directions. What separates the 4-year-old brain from the 40-year-old brain?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I was saying earlier, a lot of addictions, a lot of weird coping mechanisms. Like before, when we were 4, we would just, I'm not saying the brain yet, we would just like, if we were hurt, we would just like scream and cry, and that was how we communicated. Now we just try to stuff it down until it comes out as animosity towards a loved one for leaving a spoon in the sink. So in some ways we've matured, and I think we've lost a lot. And then, in terms of just like the brain itself, it's obviously we had a lot of, when you are in those, it's like so-called critical years, you have the most plastic brain that you will ever have. It is the most receptive to stimulus, to learning and growth, because that's its whole job at that point, right? Is like soak up all of the information, learn as much as you can, try stuff, like just try stuff so we can figure out where the boundaries are, play so you can see where the boundaries are and where to push and where to step back and what safety means, and how to speak language, how to communicate, express yourself. And yeah, and then as we get older, I mean, it used to be the case that even esteemed scientists all over the world would say that adults do not have the capacity, they don't have neuroplasticity. And it wasn't until fairly recently, I mean, really in the early 2000s, it started to get more traction. It's been around longer than that, the theory, but now it's more accepted. I'd say even like laymen would have an understanding of the word. They probably heard the word neuroplasticity thanks to people like Andrew Huberman and bringing and me. Thank you. Yes.
And you.
Yeah. And we have the ability to change our brains for the rest of our lives. Not in the same way as a 4-year-old, but we have the same access to the portal, which is play.
Well, minus a traumatic brain injury, and then you could totally do it like a 4-year-old all over again. So
okay, yes.
Just walk under some scaffolding. If you want to take the express train to get there, I'm not necessarily recommending that. I don't want to get sued by anybody watching this, but maybe that's the way to do it. Okay, but assuming somebody doesn't want to walk underneath some scaffolding and take that route to going back to their 4-year-old brain, let's actually talk neuroplasticity. So we get to this point in life, like you said, we have these addictions. We have these set fixed thought patterns, which we did identify as our personality, as who we are, as what we like, what we believe, what we think, what ought to happen. And they can trap us. They become these prisons. So would you look at neuroplasticity as a way out of that prison of our own making? And if so, what are some things we can do to start kind of peeling back the layers of that piece by piece?
Yeah, absolutely. There's who was it who said it? Albert Ellis, I think. He called it masturbating. So shitting and masturbating. I'm like, stop shitting and masturbating on yourself.
Mhm.
I should do this or else I'll be a loser or whatever. Or like just being aware that it's everything's like made up. I mean, we it's all coming from our brain, which is making up stories based on input that we had. And now think about it, there's like how many people? 7 billion, whatever people on the planet. Every single one of those brains has a different version of the story of everything, of what things mean, of how to what triggers people, what words work in conversation, what actions, like millions of input, billions of bits of data that have gone into each of these brains. So every single one of us has a different story based on that. And then we think that this story that we project onto the world is reality, which is crazy. Like that's insane.
Mhm.
But that's what we got. So I think just first realizing that it's all just a story, and story is one of the most powerful forces on earth, at least for humanity, at least for our brains. So you have it's just a story and it's also a story. So starting to look at what do I think that I believe? When I'm feeling a certain way, when I'm feeling like really charged, what's coming up for me? Some people will like automatically kind of go to their head and they'll have a phrase or stories or words that come to mind. Some people are more like, I don't know what I'm thinking yet. I just feel full of rage.
Mhm.
um,
Yep.
and like looking at those things and going, okay, there's an interplay here, right? Of the emotional, the feeling, and the narrative, the story that your brain is making sense of things right now. So if you can just try to bring that up to your awareness, you've gained some power. And then from there, it's like, well, what are the myriad options you can take? Can you play with them? Can you look at another
Mhm.
narrative, another feeling, another, route that you want to be taking? And what is the story that would support that?
So how do we change direction within the story? How do we talk about this a lot, the author's pen. Kimberly, what's happening, my friend? Good to see you. Kimberly is somebody who really understands this very viscerally, who understands how to play with the energy in our field here and say, I'm going to just go this way now. The world told me I'm going to go this way, but now I'm just gonna go this way, and I'm going to just
Mm,
do this. And it's really refreshing to meet people like this because it's there. It's always been there. It's awesome. And was there a moment in your life, and I've been really fortunate to hear your story about how you got into this type of work. If you could share it with the audience, that'd be amazing because it's a really cool journey.
yeah, so I'll start with okay, I'll because it made me laugh, I'll just say it. I don't remember if I told this part to you before, if you heard this, but when I was in grade school, we had to dissect a fetal pig. And the purpose of this dissection was to learn more about the organs. I don't know, liver and spleen and whatnot. I don't know why we had fetal pigs. We were on the big island of Hawaii and there's probably an abundance of them. And I just remember that we do the little assignment and I'm like, hey, liver organs fascinating. But but why isn't anyone telling us, like, there's the brain, what about the part that's powering all the parts? Why are we not looking that what we have this opportunity to see a brain, and like nobody's instructing that. So I just took it upon myself to hack into its little skull and peel out the little brain, and I was just completely mesmerized. It's just like my friend was not impressed. And, just like looking at this, like, like Gollum, like my precious. I just was
Not
thought it
impressed
was
with a pig brain?
so not impressed with my zealous nature to look at the relationship. I guess she was also, like, not surprised. It was sort of like, "Yep, that makes sense. Jocelyn is literally
It's
the
on
only
brand.
person in class doing that."
I could see
Um,
it.
yeah, and it wasn't until, many years later, so I had this kind of curiosity and fascination for, like, what is this thing that animates and, to me, it gave life, and you know, we think thoughts and don't they come from there and that kind of thing. But it wasn't until I was in my early 20s when, my dad had a stroke, and he had lost his ability to speak.
Mhm.
He could make sounds, and, I remember getting the call from my grandma. I was in Portland, Oregon, so it was like 2,500 miles away from the Big Island, and my grandma calls, she tells me, I call the hospital, and I just remember that, like, moment of him picking up the phone and saying, "Hiya," and I just, like, crumbled, "Mute, don't hear me," just completely losing it. Whew, and, okay, like, taking some
Rough.
breaths and saying, "Are you okay?" I don't remember 'cause, like, it's such a blur, but I do remember him saying, "It's gonna be okay," which took a while to make out,
Mm.
um, and I just thought, "Nope, no, no, this is not okay," and I took all my entire life savings of like $440, whatever it was, and bought a plane ticket back home. And he refused to give up. And he also there. So when you have a stroke, if it's still accurate, I haven't looked into this for a few years, but there's something called the golden window of
Mhm.
time where you can kind of more or less, I think it was about 3 hours, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 hours, where you can, if you address the symptoms within that window, you have a much higher likelihood of recovery. And he was right outside of that window, it's like right beyond it. But he he just decided, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to make sounds and start articulating them more and more and just think about one letter at a time and just really focus, like put in the effort,
Mhm.
like d ah l, and then eventually he could say a whole word, and then he could
Mhm.
say a sentence, and then he was back to communicating and telling dad jokes and
Mhm.
also doing this really annoying thing that he does now. So he's speaking again. He's such a great storyteller, and he would just tell me all these fabulous stories about his life. And he grew up in Southern California in the heyday of, like, I was gonna say Charlie Manson. He did meet Charlie Manson. He was not impressed with him.
Now that's a heyday.
Um, he was like playing with the Beach Boys and surf rock, and like the best time I can imagine, like the best time in America for a white dude, especially.
Oh, yeah. Top of the mountain.
Yeah, just great, like open roads, these cool
Mhm.
cars, and um, so he would tell me these stories about all this, and often we would get to this really spicy part of the story, just like a cliffhanger, and say, and that's when the cops came, and I'd be like, and then what? And he'd say, oh, I'll tell you when you're older, and he still does that, still does that.
My
Oh,
kinda
I
guy.
know.
I've gotta have a beer with him next time I'm out that way. Yeah. That is awesome, and we have a great comment here from Dan. This is
Mm.
really something that has been top of mind for a lot of people, particularly the last few years, this loneliness epidemic. And how can neuroplasticity be used to help us connect and reconnect with people, with the world, with ourselves, with all of it?
That's a great question. Man, I was just reading, first on a depressing note, I was just reading that life expectancy went down for the first time since I think they started measuring it during COVID. And my theory is, and a friend of mine who studies this did corroborated, but I haven't looked into it myself. The theory that part of it, a big part of it, is from isolation,
Mhm.
loneliness. We literally need each other, right? We can joke about hating people and liking animals, right? And with our friends, what hypocrites we are. We tell a human that we hate all humans, um, but we do need each other, and often we avoid connection when we need it most,
Mhm.
right? It's like when we're deep in uh, depression, or people who have depressive disorder. It's like one of the or anxiety too. One of the last things you want to do is go out and reach out to somebody, and that's a really tough thing. I'm no expert in overcoming those. I'm not a therapist, but I
You can
would
pretend to
say
be
that
one. It's LinkedIn.
yeah, that's right. I could be anybody on LinkedIn. I'm an
You better
expert in
believe
all
it.
the things.
Everybody was an epidemiologist 3 years ago. Why can't you be a therapist today?
Yeah. Yes, I'm an expert in virology and Mars. So billionaires. Yeah, I think part of it is you have to deal with a little bit of discomfort. You just that's part of growth. People who perceive that discomfort as valuable as uh you know like what would how would I say this, like sunshine, like you nourishment, will have an easier time knowing that, like one of the phrases I say to myself all the time, I heard from Huberman actually, is the effort part is the good part. The effort part is the good part. I do that when I'm like complaining about like I can't figure out this story or whatever it is. The effort part is the good part. So knowing that, hey, I just want to reach out. I know I need some kind of connection. I know I need to be uplifted, or I want to uplift somebody else. And actually that's one of the best things you can do is to how can I go thank somebody or bring them a gift of connection or feeling like they matter. There's this really brilliant book, and I'm blanking on the name, by this woman who was experiencing really deep depression after her husband died, and she was a researcher on emotions, and she realized that when I went out of my head basically to go see what I could give to somebody else. Let's say you want to visit a nursing home
Right.
or an orphanage or something. Do those exist? Um, or
In the movie
some
Annie, they do.
yeah, somewhere where you can go offer, and it doesn't have to be that grand of a thing either. You just go like give somebody let somebody cut in line or something. But just see how you can give that to somebody else, and it's extremely rewarding for us and our brains. And our brain will go, "Oh, that being good to somebody else felt really great," and then that other person feels better, and that kindness is contagious. So that
Hmm.
is one thing you could do, is like just go send a quick thank you on your phone to somebody you haven't talked to in a while, or somebody you just want to appreciate today.
Yeah, like a friend that you don't talk to anymore. Maybe you last talked to them, 8 years ago, and you send them this text, and it's funny. I want to thank you so much because your example showed me exactly who not to be in life.
Yeah,
I do
and
want to give
block.
a yes, exactly. I do want to give a shout out to Bob. What a journey back from the abyss. And we talk about head injuries, and I say it in jest, but it's no joke. And if you can come back from that, especially learning to speak again, yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much there, and I think I feel like there's almost like a societal, and not to downplay or minimize, what Bob went through, or certainly what your father went through, but it feels like there's been a almost societal head injury that's happened where we have to relearn a lot of these very basic interpersonal skills that we once had and these approaches to life that we once had. And so now, how do we crawl our way back? You talked about doing one kind thing. What if we're just alone? What if there's nobody else around? What if our phone crapped out on us and we're just alone with our thoughts? What's one little thing we can do to start changing the story and rewiring the brain?
Right, like what back let's rewind 3
Mhm.
years, we're back there,
We're back there.
alone, and there's been a solar flare and we can't talk to anybody.
Yeah. We're
Um,
pivoting back to those unprecedented times.
well, what did kid you like to do? That's something I like to like, what did kid you do? What did the 4-year-old, if you could remember,
Mm.
what did that little person love more than anything? Um, and, some of them might involve friends, that's okay, but just brainstorm, right? Maybe it was just coloring in a coloring book, or, painting the walls, or, jumping in mud, or, talking to the kitty. I mean, writing stories, making games. Think of those things that where you experienced a time where you got completely swept up in just pure joy and flow, and you lost track of time because you were so in the moment and see if you can channel some of those things. Like, give yourself that gift. Go like, you know what? I'm just gonna try doodling for a few minutes and see where that takes me, and see what sticks. But give yourself that gift, of like, yeah, the flow and the joy. I think I like to tell corporations, especially because it makes them uncomfortable, that joy and connection are like the most vital things that we need. They're, to me, they're the portals of everything else. One of the ways you get there is through play, but
Mm.
joy is like, why do we poo poo these words that are uh kind of like what we live for? Because there's so much hardship, right? There's so much hard shit in life.
There
Having a
really
stroke,
is.
I mean, just like, uh existing can feel uncomfortable. Aging can feel so uncomfortable. Losing people and friends and mentors, and death of pets and illness, all of that stuff. So we absolutely need those moments of joy and connection, and whether that's joy for uh, tapping something that little kid you love to do, or finding something new and connecting to the part of yourself that feels like they belong here on earth, that feels grounded, or connecting to others. But that wasn't your question. It was about when you're alone. So
That's the perfect answer. It doesn't even matter what the question was. That is the perfect answer. I want to talk about, and you are the absolute perfect guest for this in so many ways. And, I was thinking before the show today how there may not be a guest that I've had or ever will have who embodies the name of the show itself better than the great Jocelyn Brady. I think you embody the spirit of it so perfectly and so on point. And what I really love to dig into is the concept of irreverence as
Mm.
a route back home to ourselves. Now, I peddle in irreverence for a living, so it's, I have a soft spot for it. But what would you say to somebody who, first of all, is not even familiar with the concept and how we can apply it to our daily lives, and maybe the power of it, and any other thoughts you have?
Oh, that's a juicy one. I remember the first time I really saw that word in context, and I was an intern, and I worked briefly at Willamette Week as a freelancer.
Mhm.
So it's an alt weekly newspaper in Portland, and they described themselves as the like irreverent newspaper, and I was like, that's so wonderful that they're coming at, like, that's how they choose to represent themselves.
Yep.
As I think, like, going back to the point of life being hard, um, if we stop taking everything so goddamn seriously, we can
Hmm.
have a little more joy and experience a little more connection, and pull down our egos and our guards and our like belief that we know things, that we're certain of, like, anything, other than that we'll probably die. But even that, do we know that for sure? Probably, maybe. I think so. I don't know. See, right? Um,
Hmm.
so I think if you're able to find the levity in basically everything, I'm trying to think of where we don't want to find levity, and nothing is coming to mind at the moment. I think there's
Yeah.
always a time and a place and a context for everything. I think there is, especially if you're just between friends and you, like, one of you had cancer, for example, you're just like joking about cancer. You're not going to go probably do that in the leukemia ward tomorrow, where somebody's grieving the loss of a loved one, right? There's a
Right.
time and place. But
Oh, maybe.
depends who died. Um, it was a good it was a good loss. We didn't need that one anymore.
Yeah, we
Um,
could do without them. You should have seen their
some
driving.
yeah, yeah. Some people deserve it because they wouldn't turn on the light. Um, yeah, I think, just again, it's like finding that playfulness and fun and levity. I think that's what irreverence sort of means to me. It's like, because the opposite would be what you're just oh, everything's holy, and
Yeah.
look where that got us. Look where, oh, I don't
Yeah.
know if this is the place for religion, but look where, and I
Mm,
know I'm going to offend people by saying that, but look where that
do
got
it.
us.
Let's do it. And that, look, where all of it got us. And it's, Christopher Hitchens said it best. And I'm paraphrasing right now, but he was talking about the difference between the literal mind and the ironic mind, and
Hmm.
how the literal mind cannot understand the ironic mind. It's when the ironic mind has to explain the joke to the literal mind, it makes the joke even funnier. and
Yeah.
and I really believe as I get older that the types of minds that we have and thought processes that people have are really broken out into the absurdist mind, the ironic, the irreverent mind, and then the literal mind. And the literal mind, and the literal mind people, and we see them on social media, we see them out in the world. These are the folks that take life exceptionally seriously. They take themselves incredibly seriously. They take their ideas and their beliefs even more seriously. And God forbid you step on any of their toes or any of their sacred cows, or you poke fun at something which they have determined is off limits. All hell
Right.
breaks loose. And you'll never see this in the same space. Because there's a lightness that's associated with that kind of a reverence. That if you have this thing, and it depends on how big the thing is. Now you could be light and fun about all kinds of stuff except like the one thing, and the one thing you
Mm.
can't joke about. And you are their best friend until you step on the one thing.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. And think
that's
about
it.
life. Think about living like that, where everything is a trigger or potential trigger. Like, who wants to be that person, let alone around that person, where just
Yep.
everything is like a potential um, w- bear trap.
Absolutely. I had a post I put up a little while ago, and it was reported and taken down. And I th- I thought it was hilarious, of course, or I wouldn't have posted it. I don't know if it was objectively hilarious or not. That remains to be seen. But it was. So that there's a big thing that's happening these days in the U.S. and Canada, more so in Canada, but it's here in other parts too, where they begin events with a land acknowledgement. You just say,
Mm.
we acknowledge that this event is happening on land that was originally part of this tribe's land and this and that. So, okay. So I had some fun with that because I satirized everything and
Yeah.
said, um, Ojibwe tribe begins event with acknowledgement of Lakota tribe who they drove. And that's and it was like a whole satire piece about that, about the Ojibwe acknowledging the Lakota who they butchered and drove out of the land, and which is true in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
somebody did not find that funny. They thought that was offensive. They thought that was like a bridge too far. And it's just irreverence. That's all it is. It's like saying, okay, the land acknowledgements, I understand the spirit of where they're coming from, but they all begin at arbitrary points in history. So I'm just taking it back like another 50 years. That's it.
Hmm.
I'm taking the literal exact thing, just rewinding it 50 more years, and I'm having fun with that. Well, no, you can't do that.
No,
Can't do that.
yeah,
No. Mm-mm.
too
So
far.
too far, way too far. And Dan, I have somebody in my household who may or may not agree with that. I have to independently verify that, but I do
Yeah,
appreciate the spirit, though. I'll have to show it to her and see if she actually agrees. No, I dig that. Yeah,
no
same,
worry.
same. Just the more people take themselves seriously and life seriously, you can tell the more fixed their brain patterns are too. And
Yeah.
so, Jocelyn, what would you say to somebody who really is lost kind of in their own belief system, who's lost in their own fixed patterns, who may actually detect a problem and say, I'm not happy, and maybe this is the reason? How can they
Hmm.
begin to unlayer those beliefs?
Yeah, I think you touched on a key point there too. It's like I work with people who want to make a change. I'm not going to force any, like, that's the worst. I wouldn't want to force the change. I did do that on my first boyfriend, where I convinced him not to be Christian anymore. Anyway, that was a long time ago. Uh yeah, if you're really stuck, I think again it's like looking at what are these narratives that you're telling. And there's a couple of frameworks that I like a lot, and which I'm teaching in my upcoming course, Human Skills for a Robot World, plug plug. And one of them is, it's called SCARF, and it's from, I got it from Neuro Leadership Institute. I think
Mm,
that's who developed it originally. And it's just looking at areas that feel triggered for you. So it's an acronym for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. If you want to hear that in slow mo, come to my
I do.
course. Um, and you
Roll it
just,
back and break it
yeah.
down.
So you're looking at, so for example, if we look at status as the S of the scarf. So
Mhm,
status meaning, how do I feel in relationship to these other people? Or like, it's kind of like, do I feel respected?
mm,
Um, a certainty is a really good one too. That's the C, certainty. So it's like, let's say that you're really high in uh, a domain that's high for you is feeling status, feeling like high status, and feeling a sense of certainty. Oh, you're going to be set up for misery. But if that feels threatened, it's kind of like pulling those layers apart. What feels threatened to me right now? I really like feeling certain about now. I get really nervous when I don't know how things are going to go. I really want to know the whole plan. Let's say you're in a leadership position. I want to know the plan. I want to see the steps. I want to look at people working to prove to me that they're working. Um, and I want them all to look up to me and respect me. And so if that feels threatened, you're noticing like, okay, somebody like dared to work from home and said hey to me instead of hello, mister, whatever. Then look at, oh man, I'm not painting the very nice picture for something. Okay. But you look at these areas that are threatened and go, okay, now I get to make a choice. Do I want to continue feeling this way? Um, if I do, then great. I'm on I'm on the path to being miserable. Wonderful. If I don't, where can I make these shifts? And so let's say uncertainty, how can I get a little more comfortable with uncertainty? Let's look at just tiny things at first, right? Like maybe um, if I say, hey, Bob, can you can work from home? Just let me know what days you're doing that, or call me in the morning, whatever it is. Like baby step your way into more certainty in those areas that feel particularly triggered. That's like feels like a long-winded answer. I'm not sure if I really.
Good answer. It's a good answer. I'm feeling this real Family Feud vibe right now. I just want to yell, "Good answer! Good answer!" at everything. No matter if it's a good like your answers are really good. Family Feud, that's a very different conversation. Half of those answers are good. Half of them are hysterically funny, which probably makes them even better than the good answers.
Da, da, da,
And
da. Is that the one?
this is actually it's I want to come back to this for a second here. So imagine Archie Bunker in these times, right? And I think Archie Bunker is such a misunderstood character. Now, Archie Bunker would never be on the air today, but Archie Bunker was actually a very irreverent character. Now, people think who look at it through, and actually, I think Archie Bunker is the great litmus test of the
Hmm.
ironic versus the literal mind, because the literal mind will see, this older conservative white guy on TV, and he's spouting off all these slurs and this and that, and they'll say, well, this is obviously a manifestation of the racism of the time, and they want to showcase their character. But the ironic mind says, no, that's not it at all. He was a satire, a parody of the racism of the time, and showing
Mm.
how utterly ridiculous it was through this character, and realizing he was like a cartoon character, essentially.
All right.
Mm.
I don't really
And I
know.
think
I don't remember Archie Bunker so well. Me and him didn't
highly recommend
connect.
All in the Family, amazing sitcom, and just such an iconic piece. And it was really them saying, yeah, there are a lot of people out there like Archie Bunker who have really ridiculous beliefs and are very bigoted, but we're not going to hide it in the shadows. We're just going to put him on TV.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give him the rope to hang himself. And he did every episode, and it brought the house down.
Yeah, we could certainly use more of that right now, which is, I think, aligned to this question from Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how do we explore blind spots? Sorry, I'm just taking over hosting now.
Do it.
How do we explore blind spots without being canceled? We all have them. We all eventually, yeah. Hope they're not in public. Woof. I mean, we have some good examples of people getting like Lizzo recently, and the first one I thought of was Chappelle, who kind of is going through his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who I still love, and they're fucking people. Oh my god! I mean,
Yeah.
this is like talking about irreverence. We're humans, and we try stuff,
Yep.
and we say stuff, and we mess up, and then we figure it out. And if we give a little more leeway for people being allowed to make mistakes, um, and learning from them, like the whole system needs a reboot to growth mindset. Like we need to learn things, and we can't learn them if we're not trying, and we don't step out of bounds sometimes. We just, and then understanding where it is actually something that really hurts versus somebody just needs to virtue signal that they stand for whatever it is it's popular at the time, right? um right. So how do we explore blind spots without being canceled? I mean, there's a few things that come to mind there, which is just like, if getting with community where you can get a good facilitator would be my first recommendation. And
There's a
talk
couple of them
about,
out there.
yeah, talk about the things that do feel triggering or that you're afraid to say or that you're genuinely curious about.
Mm.
Like, I mean, something that I have a hot spot around is I don't agree here. Maybe I'll get canceled now. So we'll see what happens, Brian. You can
Let's do
use
it.
me as an example. Um,
Nice
what
knowing you.
when the male swimmer decided he wanted to be female, and then he competed against female swimmers and won. And that became it's a big issue. And a lot of the female swimmers were really afraid to speak up. They didn't think it was fair, but they're supportive of the person, which I think we can all agree with. Yes,
Mm.
like live your life the way that you want to live it. Feel good about yourself, like explore what you most want, right? I think we all want that even if we get triggered by it or anything. But when it comes to that, like, wait a minute, there's a lot that went into creating women's sports and creating a space for women to compete with each other. There's just like that we're just not gonna ever be faster than a man, probably. And it
You
just
should see
does
some of
seem
my friends. You may take that
like
back. I left that
yeah, it
couch
does.
in 25 years.
Let's have a couch sitting competition. I'll win that. Yeah, and so I think that's a really good example of something that's very touchy, especially
Yep.
because nobody wants to be the person who's against trans rights. And I think there's very few people who actually are. I think they're
Mm.
those fixed mind, the people you're talking about, the
Yep.
analytical, the literal minds who
Literal
just,
mind. Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
And there's a lot of people just scared, like they don't,
Mm.
they're like, the world is changing around me. I don't understand it. I'm just gonna like be an asshole about it because that's my
Mhm.
defense mechanism. Like we see a
Yep.
lot of that. But instead, if we can open it up to like an actual dialogue, like getting curious and saying, "Hey, what do we think this is fair? Like, can we just talk about this? Do
Can
we
we just
think
talk
that
about it?
yeah, just like and try to understand the other person's point of view because remember those 7 billion brains that are all operating a different way and you think that yours is right."
Of course.
um so just yeah, like practicing that cognitive flexibility and getting curiosity and compassion. I think you can't really go wrong, and if you do, well, you learned something and you probably got out of the room you shouldn't be in because it's filled with assholes.
I'm in a lot of those rooms, and I'm trying to delayer those rooms from my own life, piece by piece by piece. And I've seen some success with it, but like anything else, it's a work in progress. I think you really hit on something really important, which is that there is a preponderance of the literal mindset among people when it comes to these conversations. And the literal mindset shifts something from a conversation to a diktat. Either way, and it doesn't make a difference where they're coming from on it. And it could be, this is actually a great illustrative example. So on one hand, you have the people who are just being as mean and nasty to this person as they possibly can, because that's their go-to. Their literal mind is that this threatens my worldview, this threatens my conception of reality, therefore I'm going to go on the attack. And there's the others, which, well, this is the new cultural zeitgeist. This is the approved way you're allowed to think about this. And therefore you must only say statements in 100% lockstep support or you'll be canceled. And they're
Right.
both coming from a fixed literal mindset. But within both of them, there's no space for growth. There's no space for conversation. There's no space for communication, for empathy. There's no space for any of that. And if they could both just take 2 steps back, even one little step back towards each other, this space can start lighting up again.
Right. Yeah. I think so. There's so much the divisiveness. And it's always thinking about the puppet masters going like, haha, they're
Mm.
fighting about things that really don't
Oh,
matter.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, yeah. And Lonnie, all we can do is share or inquire. And exactly, I think a lot of people take it like so personally that somebody doesn't agree with that one particular opinion that they might change. It's just like, yeah, all we can do is share and try to understand and be mindful again of our own triggers because we like looking at things like that scarf framework, right? Like
Yeah.
where, I'm getting heated and I'm saying things that maybe aren't super productive for me or anybody else around me. So maybe I can just like look at that first before I shove it all onto somebody else and blame them for not understanding why who was afraid of the water as a child, whatever things are coming up for you.
Yeah. And, we shouldn't take things too seriously either, because the things we take seriously as truth today are not going to be held as truth tomorrow. So there's an absurdity to taking anything too seriously or literally, because it's just not going to hold up over time. So you're holding on to something which will be proven stupid at some point down the road,
Yeah.
no
I
matter
mean, I
what
think
it
about
is.
like it's such a good like sciences, right? Like
Mhm.
neuroscience. There's this professor that's saying I think about 50% of what neuroscience students are learning is inaccurate. So it's no longer accurate, but you can't keep up. Like the textbooks can't keep up, and people perpetuate information that's no longer considered valid. And it's sort of like, well, if we just allow it to be like, hey, let's be curious about what it is and ready to let it go because
Mhm.
things it's flowing.
Yeah. And a lot of times I think a beautiful way to approach it, if you're really trying to, this is one trick that I like to use, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is somebody asked me, is it this or is it this? I just answer yes. I answer
Yeah.
yes for basically everything. And the more things I think about, yes really can come into all of it. And I was chatting with a buddy of mine. We were just talking history. This is what we do. We go down these rabbit holes. We're middle-aged men. It's in the bylaws. And the example of Spain came up. And the question was, historically, is Spain a colonizer or are they the colonized?
Hmm.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But depending on which side you fall on, you're going to get a different answer. And the answer is yes. And there are so many things that can be extrapolated to in life. Does science prove this or does it suggest this? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that you see in your life that you can apply that to, or things that you've seen that people look at in very kind of fixed binary ways, but there's more fluidity within that?
Hmm. There's probably a lot of things. What comes to mind? Let's see. Um, I just see my cat here, so the first thought I had is kitties are the best. Indisputable fact.
Mhm.
Cats or dogs. But yeah, they're
And
both
cats are
great.
also
They're both
truly
great.
evil creatures. Yes.
Yes, yes,
Cats are the best and they're truly evil. Yes.
yes. Will they
Yes.
take your breath at night? Yes.
Mhm.
Will they also give you life? Yes.
Yes.
Um, what else? What are some good examples? Um, just thinking about like the vaccine. There's this one of my favorite comedians. His name is Curtis Cook, and I don't want to. I'm going to. I'm going to butcher his joke. It was just sort of the gist of I don't know. It was during the peak of pandemic. I don't know about this vaccine. Like, I don't know. It does seem creepy. But just take it. But just take it. But I don't know. But maybe it does cause weird. But just take it. Like, okay. But just sort of that. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Right. There was so much yes during COVID. So much
Yeah.
yes. That was the absolute epicenter of yes, seen through the lens of if or but only, and just yeah.
Yeah.
Term failing fast or failing forward. It's a good question from Bob that we see in entrepreneurial innovation oriented circles. Yeah, there's something to that. I think failing fast and failing forward, because we get stuck. Talk about narratives, right? If we start a business, we start an enterprise, and it falls on its face. How many of us get stuck in that narrative of, well, I suck as an entrepreneur. I'm not
Because
going to get
this
it done.
one thing didn't work out. Yeah.
One thing. Or what if this business was a terrible idea and I'm going to start something really great afterwards? So, are you a terrible entrepreneur or a great entrepreneur? Yes.
Yeah. You got you. I think I always find it helpful to look at those examples from the past. Like one of my favorites is thinking about Stephen King, who supposedly plastered his walls with rejection letters from publishers, and like everybody knows the name Stephen King now, right? And it's not to say that we want to be the famous author, but I think that
Speak for
that
yourself.
narrated that story. Yeah. Well, I should have. I'm going to take that back. Um, I am going to be the replacement for Stephen I'm not going to write that kind of book. Okay. Yes, but thinking about how these people persevered and created something that delighted us. So like the person who made God, what was that show about chess? The with that it was like
Help
a
us
year
out in the
ago.
comments here. Show about chess.
It was
What do
with
we got?
that woman with people with
Okay,
actors.
The show featured a woman, and there was
Yes,
chess.
she was
Comments,
the
go.
uh, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful show, and these people that made it, I believe it was 9 years or so of getting rejections and told this will never happen, and then it became the Queen's Gambit. Yes.
Boom. And
Yes,
Lord,
yes, yes, yes.
on it.
Yeah. Bobby
Ah.
Fischer. Oh, Bobby Fischer. Bobby could be
Queen,
a
yeah,
woman.
Bobby could. That's very true. Actually, very good friend of mine who's a woman is named Bobby. So yes,
Yeah. I have an
absolutely.
aunt named Bobby. We don't speak.
Good name. I need better friends. I think that's what it comes down to.
It's
Now,
colonization of Mars on the table.
God knows we would definitely venture into that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not friends with Elon, but I think that's his jam.
Yeah, it's where we put the billionaires.
That's, yeah, kind of like that
And then we
idea.
televise them like a Truman
Imagine.
Show.
So cool, wouldn't it?
They
Do like
just
a
go to
wrestling
war.
steel cage, and throw
Yeah,
chairs in there, and just gonna let them go after it, and not AI generated, like the real thing on Mars.
yeah, and that's like the deal. Anybody who becomes a billionaire, you get put onto the cage on Mars. That's so watch yourself.
But they do it because the stakes are, if you win, get the others billions.
And you can spend it on a bigger cage.
That's right. So Elon gets to take over the entire Zuck enterprise,
Yeah, get
and
all
it
the
gets
Zuck gloves.
Facebook. It's like Facebook Meta X becomes this hybrid. Could you imagine? I don't want
He's
to think
gonna
about that.
rename it something worse. Yeah.
I mean, it's so good. So one thing that, as we dig deeper into this topic, really want to ask, and I want to put this out as a broad question. Just really get that out there. How do we just hack our brain? So we have these set patterns and we have these processes. Like, all right, this is how it is. This is what I think. This is what I believe. This is who I am. What is some pattern interrupt that we can do at any point during the day to just
Hmm.
stop, pop, drop, and shift?
I mean, just the littlest thing, like brushing your teeth with your left hand if you're right-handed. Just being I mean, I did that the other day and I don't recommend it, but I do recommend it. Yes. It's just so awkward. And then you're like, "Oh, I can do this really weird thing," or taking a different route home. Like super simple stuff. You can just if you notice yourself doing a default um I think of like, what do I do during I'm going to the fridge and then I'm like, "Oh, I'm not cooking. I wanna order something," and then I just think again about it. It's like, "You know what? I'm gonna take that onion and do something with it. I'm gonna make a face." I don't know. Those are those little things you can think about, where can I switch this real quick? Just like into something exploring a new avenue or new way to do, what I do without thinking. That's one thing.
I like that. So, okay, so brushing left-handed and making a face with an onion. I want to
Yes,
explore
this is
this
it.
onion avenue a little bit more. I feel there's more we can do here with this now onion that now has a face.
Yeah,
Do we give it a
you can,
personality?
absolutely. You can have it have 2 faces. So,
Ooh.
one, you know, different personalities, they have different advice, and that could be your onion for the week, where it's telling you this side is telling you the naughty thing, and this side is telling you the positive thing, or this one is the story you no longer wanted to tell, and then it's telling you the Glinda the Good Witch version of it. Um, yeah, one of the classics is called the multiple use test, or you could just like finding an object and quickly brainstorming 10 different ways, 10 different things this can be. Perspective shifting. So
Hmm.
one way I like to call that multiple use test adorable baby alien game. So you're just thinking of like you're an adorable baby alien. You just landed on Earth. Everything is fascinating to you. And you're like, what is we'll be looking at this and going, it must be this, right? Um, those are a few.
And we name it Wilson.
Yes. Wilson.
Every inanimate object that takes on a personality and becomes a friend has to be named Wilson. I think that's talk about the bylaws. That is absolutely in the bylaws. Diversify your experience and embrace curiosity. That's it. It's just
Absolutely.
pattern interrupts left and right. And you could start, once a day, right? Once a day, just change this or change that. And then over time, the more you do, you're just going to bring more into your field of awareness and experience and realize the world is quite literally infinite in
Yeah.
terms of the different things that can happen. And we have the smallest sliver and we think that's it.
Yeah. And like even just go outside and look at a leaf for 2 minutes. Like, right, just you've probably not done that in quite some time, if ever, and really look at it. Really look at the veins and think about where did that come from and how did that exist and how did that form and what else does it look like and what might it feel like? Just like let your imagination explore that everyday mundane thing that is actually quite extraordinary.
That's amazing. I love this from Lonnie. How can I have more fun today than I ever thought possible?
Ooh, it resets and manifests fun without trying. It resets and manifests fun without trying. Like you're having the most fun, so then it like fun begetting fun,
I
maybe?
think if it gets more fun, I think you're hitting the reboot on fun,
Yeah.
and you're coming in. I think we have this amount of fun that will accumulate over the course of a day. For many
That it
working professionals, that number is zero, but for a lot of other people, there's some fun. But I
yeah.
love where Lonnie's coming from on this. If we just ask that question, because now you're getting back into this growth mentality, this open energy, this expansive type of way of seeing things, the way a kid will just go to look at everything like, how can I have fun today?
Yeah. Yes. I love that so much. It's like that's why play is one of my gospels. If I'm gonna be reverent about anything, it's play. And yes, I think it's like one of the things I do. If you know me at all, you've heard me say this a million times, but I have a one costume that I have is a penguin suit, and I really like to when I'm taking myself really seriously. It works every time. I just put on the penguin suit. I literally walk around like a penguin, and sometimes I'll just go like surprise somebody in it. And that makes it just it's like softens my if I'm taking myself seriously, I'm like, nobody can take themselves seriously in a penguin suit. Come on. And like the penguins, they're just so cute. So you can buy yourself a little
Brilliant.
suit that does
That's
that for you.
brilliant. Just how do you, because you cannot take yourself seriously in a penguin suit unless you're going to become a supervillain to Batman. And
True.
then
Yes.
then you're taking yourself way too seriously. But at that point, you're all in for a penny, in for a pound, take over Gotham, do the thing, have a penguin army, go all out, enlist the help of the Catwoman. Like, don't half-ass it. And I'm saying this to all of you at home who are watching. If you're going to become a Batman villain, go all in.
Yeah, there's no other
You
way.
you owe it to yourself and to the people of Gotham to give them a real villain. Now, if you work in HR, you're already there, so you don't got to worry about it. I give HR a lot of shit here. I really do. But the reality is I have a lot of, and this is where I do the whole cover in my tracks. I have a lot of good friends who are in HR, but I
Yeah.
do. And, HR, I think, is the canary in the coal mine. And I have a lot of friends
Mhm.
actually in HR who do not take themselves seriously, who understand why satirists like myself make HR jokes all the time. It's because it is an earned reputation. It comes from somewhere. It is a source of a lot of consternation for a lot of people. And why? Because there is no department in corporate America that takes itself or the people around it more seriously than HR by design. So
Right.
of course it's going to lead to friction and unhappiness and all these things. So if you can find you're watching out there, you're in HR, counting on you. This is you're going to change the world.
Yeah.
What can you
I mean,
do?
just the name is hilarious. Human resources. Like it's so blatant. How can we extract the most from them without without making them angry or want to
Right?
make a lawsuit?
I think of the old biblical movies, where they have like the guys rowing and the thing, and
Yeah,
that's just what it
yeah.
feels like. The supervisors of that, and how do we do that? A circus mirror would be great on the fifth floor
Mm,
in a lot of these organizations.
mhm. Don't you wanna does anyone here want to just, like, secretly this is terrible, but amazing, secretly give them mushrooms or acid or something and then put them in funhouse mirrors? I'm talking about the people who, like I mean, like, let's put the billionaires in there, for example, just for they're easy to pick on, so I feel like we can do that. Just put them in there. The very serious, like, corporate people who could use a little softening. Maybe it would ruin them, but maybe it would save them. Maybe it would do both.
Well, we have a couple of folks here in the chat who are well versed in the usage of psychedelics. And so,
Right.
Bob, Rachel, if you want to chime in on this, what do you think? Drop a little acid in some of the billionaires or some of the HR. And that's it here to help to crush you into compliance. I wanted to make an HR Soviet video and post it and just have some fun with it. And then Russia had to go all like 20th century and invade Ukraine and make a whole thing. So yeah, maybe I'll wait till that cools off and jump back on that again. But at the end of the day, you have to have fun. And I actually, truth be told, I did make a parody video of Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year when it all popped off, and for that same reason of it is serious and people are suffering. I'm not downplaying that at all, but even in the depths of suffering and in the depths of the most serious situation we have, there is levity to be found, and it's the most important thing we can do, because the more fixed we get into it, the more narratives start to take hold, and the more difficult it is to start undoing that as time goes on. So we have to have a little bit of levity and wiggle room, even in the middle of the rigidity. Otherwise,
become brittle and break.
We do.
Give the employees that. Yeah, they would know what to do with it better.
Idea.
You're right.
What are your thoughts on that? And this is not a psychedelic episode, but in terms of it's so much part of the zeitgeist nowadays, and it's really working its way into these conversations. So where do you see that fit in the greater neuroscientific picture?
That's a good question. I mean, it's finally with or we're seeing some opening with we could blame so many presidents, and one of them is Nixon, for enacting the CSA, the Controlled Substances Act, which classified these drugs right into schedules. And Schedule 1 included marijuana and psilocybin, which is above cocaine and other kinds of painkillers. So that effectively eliminated our chances of testing them. Like, the government won't approve testing. I think we're seeing that gateway open. We see even Biden was calling for a re-examination. Even Biden, like a president, was saying, we need to reclass, like, this classification doesn't make any sense. And it was just made up out of thin air anyway, and just decades of ruining. So I do see, it's like having, in Oregon, for example, psilocybin has been legalized. Actually, all drugs have been decriminalized and psilocybin is legalized. And I think that is great progress. We might see a little bit of kind of, that, where we see some expansion of discussion and being able to test. And now that we can have people take it legally, they're pretty much only wealthy, accessible to more wealthy people currently. So I think we should test on them. And we can at least see so many extraordinary things about what is happening in the brain. There was another, I think it was on psilocybin in the Netherlands a couple of years ago, maybe a year or two ago, very recently. And they were looking at how it like attached, I'm going to totally butcher this, but it had to do with your serotonin, like 2HA or whatever, it doesn't matter. It was looking at how it opened up your mind to more creative thinking. And so that is exciting to see. It's like how we can actually start to see the effects on receptors and flow and what if anybody who's done psychedelics imagine to be true, which is all of these new connections are being made.
There's something so powerful about that idea of an express train to opening up your mind for those who would otherwise have so much trauma that's weighing them down, that central nervous system just won't allow them to open up.
Yeah.
It's the gatekeeper of all that. Giving the babies the keys to the candy shop, Lonnie. Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of babies out there who are parading around as adults, and I think what we're trying to do here is to get them from babies to toddlers. I think that's where the juice is here. Because the babies just cry all day and they just crap all over everything. And there's again enough of that in HR. But what we really need is that toddler mentality of like, all right, so I'm mobile now, and I want to experience, and I want to play, and I want to have fun. And I want to just draw on everything, and I want to experience everything, and I want to eat everything, and I want to laugh at everything, and I want to just hug everybody. And it be like the really fun drunk, like not the nasty drunk, but the fun drunk. You want to pivot toward that a little bit, and give it kind of free rein.
The toddler without the tantrums.
Toddler without the tantrums. Now, I do have to ask this. You're out in the Pacific Northwest, and there's a lot of drug legalization happening. Have they legalized? This is going to be controversial. It might get me canceled, but have they legalized Entenmann's cookies?
Because what is it? Which cookies?
Entenmann's cookies, Entenmann's chocolate chip cookies, because that is the single greatest pain-killing drug in the history of humankind. And take it in large doses, it will kill you.
I don't know
but
what those are, but
the
yes, I
societal,
agree.
I'm just saying, it's good to know. So if I need my fix, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You can do anything here. You can do anything here. Sort of a ooh, there's all kinds of pros and cons about it right now.
there really are. Well, this is about our time. And well, of course, I got to give a shout here. We have the HR exec on LSD decided to install glass desk and floor. Why? I don't know, Bob. I don't know. I think you're the guy. I think you could tell us a lot
You
more.
could
Then we have Susie. It's good to see you, my friend.
Enterments.
Yeah, Entenmann's for every time. And highly recommend it if you've not had a chance. Everybody out there, get yourself a box of Entenmann's
Are
chocolate
these
chip
are these
cookies.
East Coast cookies?
They might be, but I think you can get them on the black market out there. They make, don't tell me they make ice cream sandwiches now. I don't need that. My gallbladder's like, don't you dare. Don't you dare. I'm like, real people talking now. All right. Yeah. Hey, Lisa Marie, this
Hey.
has been awesome. I'm tickled that you decided to come on today because this is a conversation I've been wanting to have with you for a long time. And now I get a chance to do it in front of all these wonderful people. And Jocelyn, you're the best. Is there anything that you would leave our friends here with today as they are striving to rewire their own brains, make themselves more neuroplastic, and reconnect with their inner child?
Well, plug for betterbrainstories.com, where you can enter a story that is troubling you and reframe it and have a little story spun back for you that is made for you. So and that will help to pull apart some of the feelings and thinking around a situation that's feeling particularly charged and give you a little pep in your step, I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it. Let me tell you, folks, I've done it. I went on this site and I did this. It will take 5 minutes of your time and it will change the next 5 years of your life. And I don't
Ugh.
mean that hyperbolically. This is the coolest tool and it's free for all you out there penny pinching. It's free. Check it out. Betterbrainstories.com. If you quite literally want to rewire your brain today in 5 minutes, this will change your life. You heard it here first. And if it doesn't, come after me. My lawyer's ready. Let's go. Let's dance. But I want to
Yeah,
thank
thank you.
each and every one of you for coming out today. Once again, you're the best. This community is awesome and it continues to grow every week. And we're gonna build an empire out of this. And everybody out there, I know Laura just said she's going to send you a connection request. Everybody out there should be following the great Jocelyn Brady. So if you're not, now's the time. And once again, just going to put a plug here, betterbrainstories.com. Check it out today. See what you got. Jocelyn, thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. This is delightful. You're a delight. Everybody here is a delight. Thank you.
Appreciate you all. Friends, I love you. Mwah. Enjoy the day.